Ex-addicts of Reddit, what was your rock bottom that made you realize you had to stop? When my best friend and partner of 7 years left me. When I experienced stim psychosis and couldn't leave the house. It lasted a long time. Second scariest experience of my life. When that happened again and I got hospitalized multiple times. This period of psychosis was the scariest time in my life. When I realized all my friends were gone or keeping their distance. I've hit rock bottom a few times for different addictions. The first was my gambling addiction. It was so bad that I was stealing scratch tickets from my workplace, where we weren't even allowed to be playing lottery from in the first place. I got fired, understandably, and my boss could have easily pressed charges. But he didn't. He gave me a second chance for which I will forever be grateful. I was a serious alcoholic for many years. 5 years ago I ended up in a coma. 2 weeks later I woke up and never looked back. I feel like a part of me died. I lost a lot of friends, family, money, etc. But I'm happy with the outcome. I have 2 brothers. Both of them have a fentanyl addiction. The youngest one, in his 20s, died 3 days ago. We both found him and tried to save him. Saw things we will never forget. The other brother is now 2 days clean in detox and getting ready to start rehab after finishing. Hopefully he never looks back either. I intravenously injected a rat turd. I was in serious withdrawal from fentanyl. I stumped upon what I thought was some resin that landed on the ground when cleaning out a used dope pipe. I used to smoke it primarily. The desperation for the drug was so strong that I convinced myself an unrelated piece of matter, which was clearly an animal turd, was in fact the drug I wanted so badly. I'm 1 year 3 months 21 days clean from dope and turds. I was what the kids these days call a polyaddict. Any way to get high would get me by. I'd slowly manage to wean myself off prescriptions, psychedelics, and amphetamines. And I had already committed to knocking on the head my last 3 vices: alcohol, weed, and cigarettes. I'd sorta rested on my laurels for that trio. Through their combined social acceptance and availability. Basically, long story short, it all came to a head when I was juggling through one of the other, or all 3 again every night for months till I decided, tonight's the night. I'm staying completely clean tonight. Quote, but it was not the case. Instead of steadying my reserve, I gave in at about 9 p.m. and drank the last bottle of alcohol in the house. A whole bottle of bitters. Then I found the Chinese cooking wine. Finished that. Then I scraped all the resin from my pipes and smoked all that. And then I raided my ashtray and dried all the wet cigarette butts in the oven at 2 a.m. and smoked those too. Fully aware I was starting work in less than 4 hours. I'd only really hurt myself and disappointed others over the years through my terrible life choices. But the sickening hangover the next day, an absolute shame I felt, and still feel to this day about that evening, convinced me I really needed to get my shit together. I still remember when I woke up that next day. My mouth tasted like I'd been eating a fermented arsehole. I didn't drink until college. But when I did, I hit it like a freight train. By the time I was in my late 20s, I was having withdrawal seizures. Had my first one December 26, 2016, and that kept up until 2020. I was hospitalized multiple times for them and had more that went unreported. Once at work. But I don't think anyone really noticed or cared enough to do anything substantial about it. Even myself. Every day I would vomit and feel sick. I had bruises everywhere from God knows what. But I never really cared enough to change. Between me and my husband, we were going though 3 handles of cheap vodka a week. What broke me? Us. It. Whatever was my husband's body giving out February 2020, just as the world fell apart too. Our dog died February 15th, and I think part of us did too. For husband anyways, it was his liver and kidneys. They had finally had enough and called it quits. By the time he got to the February 23rd, he was a Simpsons character. As he got treatment and I stayed by his side. Still drinking insanely, but now he was in the hospital, so I was alone. In mid-March he somehow got a transfer to Stanford and started the process for a liver and kidney transplant with about a 30% chance of survival. His family hated me at this point and I was forbidden to contact him, and I broke. There was no one, especially now with COVID making its debut, to help or care about me. For 2 weeks I drank, sized, vomited, cut myself, fell downstairs. It was actually this exact time 3 years ago where I was all alone with no one but vodka and my cat, and somehow I didn't die. Hey. Then the lockdown was officially called for California March 25th, and my mill decided to evict me the same day, so my parents begrudgingly drove the 4 hours to get me, load up their car with as much of my crap, but mostly toilet paper, as possible, and I lived in their basement for 3 years while I picked up the pieces of my little life. I couldn't quit cold turkey. I was still having seizures at this point, but I weaned myself off slowly, and now on day 990, club, here I come. What is something every man should own? His fuck-ups. A toothbrush. A good quality bucket. You never know when you'll need it. This applies to everyone, not just men. Basic cooking skills. Tools. And a willingness to learn how to use them. Long term. There is practically no better investment. A self-awareness-based sense of humor. I define this as a man understanding that it's okay to be the butt end of a joke. Don't hang your pride on being untouchable. If you lean into a joke, it passes you faster and nobody at all really cares. I have found that people think I'm more confident and charismatic than I actually feel. In huge corporations you often find people who have jobs that basically do almost nothing but aren't noticed by their higher-ups. What examples have you seen of this? I knew a guy who would go to meetings, about a dozen a month, and all he'd do is open a little notebook and take notes. When I asked him what he was doing, he said, "My job is to take notes and that's it." I asked where he put the notes and he said he put them in a little folder in his office and they haven't been touched in 15 years. I work for a big corporation, and there are several groups that have a layer of middle management where their only purpose is to consolidate information provided by lower levels and present that information to upper levels. Back in the day, the company had a system where each employee had an in and out basket for work coming to and going from their desk. The mailroom had people who went around with carts picking up the out, taking it to the mail room and delivering the in. We had one employee who every few days just dumped his in basket into his out basket. It would take a day for it to come back, making it look, at the end of the day, that he had handled everything. There was also a certain percentage of stuff that he sent out would end up in someone else's in, and he would never see it again. The biggest example in tech are the developers who have been doing development long enough that the company mistook longevity for management skills. There are so many team leads, and project managers, and product owners in tech companies whose only qualifications are been at the company a few years and never offended anybody, whose only job now are to sit around in a few meetings every day and say, "What about X idea we probably won't ever do," once every 15 minutes or so. I'm a teacher. I have a colleague who is an ambassador of innovation. He is in several task forces. You will never see him in a classroom. My sister is facilities management. During COVID they had everyone work from home. She was told to work from home. Her job is to sign for packages, make sure everything in the building is working, assign work orders to fix if any issues, make sure supplies are fully stocked. etc. With no one in the building, there was nothing to do, so she got paid for about 18 months to sit at home and answer the occasional email. Subscribe, my brothers.